Pho, ramen, and egg drop soup are all delicious soups that would heat you right up on a cold day. But most people don't know that all three of these soups come from different parts of Asia, each with their own unique culinary style. Now, we've all tried those little top ramen packages, and most of us have even tried spicing it up ourselves with, butter or egg or other kind of spice, right? And I think that around 3 years ago, that's when I started getting into cooking, was from just those adding things to ramen packages. And over time, I added more and more knowledge, more and more experiences, broadening what I could cook, and like tons of YouTube videos. And so I'd say at this point, I'd consider myself a chef. Right, and so today I'm going to be talking about 3 different kinds of Asian cooking styles, right? You got Japanese, Chinese, and Korean. Of course, there are other ones, but I'm going to be focusing on these 3 for the day. Right, so just a broad overview. In Chinese cooking, there are a lot of different regions. You got a ton of different regions, each with their own unique style, right? In Japanese cooking, it takes advantage of the umami flavor profile, which is like this savory flavor. And in Korean cooking, a lot of the flavor comes from fermenting or pickling the ingredients. Alright, so in Chinese cooking, a wide array of spices is used, right? And there's also a lot of cooking methods used at the same time. So there are 5 main spices used, and those spices are cinnamon, clove, star anise, fennel, and Sichuan pepper, right? And these are all super aromatic, smellful spices, right? Now, each different region you get into uses a different amount of these and also their own individual spices. So you got Hunan region, which specializes in, not specializes, but uses a lot of shallots and chili oil. The Sichuan region, which uses a lot of Sichuan pepper. And the Cantonese region, which uses rice wine and sugar for a more sweeter taste. Now, here we got beef chow fun. Now, this is made from marinating steak. It's got wide rice noodles, and it's seasoned with sesame oil, soy sauce, and ginger. Now, this is a Cantonese food, right? So, the cooking style, cooking method comes from stir frying, which is basically they use this wok, which is a big round bottom metal frying pan, right? And so you cook it in oil, and that's how you stir fry. There's also steaming and boiling, and steaming is what you see normally when you go to dim sum and you see those the bamboo containers that have like dumplings or something inside of it. Now for desserts, they're not really as sweet as you'd imagine like an American dessert would be. So sesame balls, mooncakes, and grass jelly, they're not really that sweet. Grass jelly is something that you can get as a topping in like your boba drink. Now, Japanese can use a lot of the same ingredients as Chinese cooking, but it specializes more so in seafood, considering the fact that it's an island, right? So the umami flavor, which is commonly associated with MSG, which is monosodium glutamate, comes from mushroom or kelp or bonito, which is dried fish flake, basically. And you can get it from other things like tomato, but the first 3 are what they generally use in Japan. Now, this is a picture of shoyu ramen, which is the broth is made from a blend of kelp, bonito, soy, and other ingredients. And once you add noodles and any choice of topping, like as you can see, you got barbecue pork and egg and other things, that's when you finally got your shoyu ramen. Now, curry. Most would associate curry with Thailand or India, but the national food of Japan is actually curry rice. So they can get the flavor of umami inside the curry from different ingredients like seafood and, well, like what I mentioned before, mushroom, kelp, bonito. Although they can also use beef and other ingredients in the curry. Now, cooking methods. Normally when you think of Japanese cooking, you can think of sushi, which actually isn't really even cooked at all. A lot of Japanese people will eat their food raw as long as it's properly cured and approved by the government or by the health department. So you'll see a lot of egg with rice or raw fish with rice just eaten. And there's frying. You can imagine a tempura shrimp, which is like egg and battered, and then they quickly fry it. You also have tempura other vegetables like zucchini. And similar to Chinese cooking, the dessert's not always going to be that sweet. You got mochi and matcha ice cream and mochi matcha ice cream. So there's a whole lot of different things you can do with Japanese cooking. Now Korea. This is also surrounded mostly by water like Japan, but they don't specialize in seafood as much. Generally, how Korean cooking works is you got the rice and the noodle, and then you got a strong flavor that comes from a kind of meat or a fermented ingredient. Now, how the fermentation works is there's a bacteria that will convert sugar or carbohydrates inside of vegetables to lactic acid, which will give it a more tangy and acidic flavor, different from a lot of other kinds of Asian cooking. Now you have soybeans, red pepper paste, that's also known as gochujang, and cabbage, which is also known as kimchi. And you'll have those pickled with and fermented with a couple other ingredients for a unique flavor. Now, Korean barbecue, one of the most classic styles of cooking. Basically how this works is you take a lamb meat like pig or chicken or beef, and you marinate it in soy sauce or sesame seed oil and salt and pepper and the good old-fashioned sugar. Now, once you finish grilling it, you pair it with a little bit of fermented ingredient, and boom, you got yourself a nice meal. Now, for Korean barbecue, as you saw from the picture, the grill itself, the steel grill, is built into the table. At a lot of places, it's like this, so that the diners can actually cook the food themselves. Now, in conclusion, Chinese cooking, it really depends on the region, but they use a lot of aromatic spices, right? Japanese cooking, you got that savory, umami flavor that gives a deep, rich flavor, right? And then Korean cooking has got that fermentation and pickling for enhanced flavor. Now there are similarities, like all of them will use soy sauce and a couple other ingredients, but there are countless differences between them, as I mentioned. So hopefully now you can take your instant ramen game to the next level with inspiration from Chinese, Japanese, or Korean cooking. Thank you.